I want to briefly start all of this by saying that the reason that I am putting this together in a video format is that I failed an attempt at doing it in a live format, and I really think that the majority of the reason that was is because my emotions were too high, and I allowed my emotions to overtake what I was saying, and said things that I deeply regret. I have since removed those live streams. I understand there are versions of the live stream that exist out there. I'm not going to report them. It's not that I'm trying to hide any of this. The reason I removed the live stream originally is because I have some deep shame from it, because I know that I did things that were wrong and said things that were wrong. Now, have I gone as horrible as many people have? Of course not, but there was still too far in that particular live stream. So for that, I apologize. The Bible's really clear about this in James 1:19. And towards the end of the verse, it actually says, "Now everyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger." All three of those things I failed at in a horrible fashion on Wednesday when Charlie was assassinated. My emotions were high. I have lots of things that go on in my head when something like that happens. But the most important thing to say before I get into the real topic of the video is that this in no way was okay. There's no way to justify political assassination. Remove Charlie from the equation, all of his political beliefs from the equation, and strictly recognize that he was a prominent political speaker who was assassinated for his opinion. And that is legitimately the antithesis of what the United States stands for, and it's an awful, awful tragedy. I will never understand anybody from any side who uses this situation to politicize and justify a murder and an assassination, or uses it to weaponize the other side of the argument. Both things are wrong. There's no two ways about it. That's the most political this video is going to get. So that's done now. The second point that I really want to bring up is that there's going to be people who understandably question, why am I, as an Overwatch gaming content creator, even talking about this? I'm not a political commentator. I'm not even remotely involved with politics. Why am I even bothering to talk about it? There's a couple things. But at the core, the most important thing for me in this community is that I share and live out my faith in front of you guys to the very best of my ability, certainly understanding that I am far from perfect and I make mistakes frequently. And I believe that we have done a really good job at, regardless of the fact that not everybody in my community is Christian, nor do I expect them or need them to be. The core of this community is that life is difficult. Don't do it alone. And I firmly believe that the majority of people that are going through life alone have many different things that have caused them to get to that place. But I honestly believe that the things I'm going to discuss in today's video do play a huge factor into why people do this and go through life alone. It's truly horrible. And I really want to talk about it. Man, it really keeps hitting me when I think about that, man. Proverbs 11:14, to support this, says, "Where there is no guidance, the people fall. But in an abundance of counselors, there is victory." This is actually biblical wisdom to discuss the importance of making decisions outside of just your thoughts. It's really important to invite other people in that, honestly, that disagree with you. I do that a lot with my decisions in my life. I have plenty of people on opposite ends of many extremes, politics completely out of the picture. And that's what this is specifically talking about. But I do believe it plays a very big part into why you shouldn't do life alone as well. So let's get to the meat of this. The very first thing that I really want to talk about is that we really need to get to a place in society where we think for ourselves and stop letting media of various formats do your thinking for you. I want to be very specific on what I mean by that. I'm not talking about a specific situation right now, although Charlie's assassination brought this to light. There is an immense amount of people from all sides that read a news article, headline most of the time. They don't even read the full article. This has been true since I was in high school a little over 10 years ago. You'd read the headline and you would know people did this because they're just using the headline as their argument. If you push any further, they actually had no basis for it. It's even worse today. People read or listen, or most of the time, I don't think anybody reads anymore, if I'm being honest. We watch and listen to whoever our personal favorite commentator is, whether it's through mainstream media or, TikTok or X or whatever the platform may be, we listen to the people that we think probably align with us the best, and without actually checking what they're saying against what we personally fully believe, we immediately regurgitate what we have heard. And there's so many reasons this is a problem, but primarily speaking, if you cannot have your own opinion separate from what someone has told you to believe, it's not your opinion. All you have done is become a mouthpiece for whatever media you are consuming. And that's a very dangerous thing to do, because regardless of how much you align with one person or one news media or one whatever group, there are going to be things that you disagree with them on. There just are. I'm a Christian. I talk about that a lot, and you'll know that because I mention my faith quite a bit. I disagree with many Christians on many things. And that's because I've taken the time to look through the scripture and read it for myself and study it. And my conclusions are very different. That doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means we disagree. And that maybe there's an area of gray that could be discussed. But the most important part of this point is that you need to stop consuming. And I say you, it really is me too. We need to stop consuming media and immediately spitting it right back out without thinking about what was said. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, and if anything worthy of praise, think about these things, is what Philippians 4:8 tells us as Christians, those of us that are. And I believe there's wisdom in it for all of us. There's nothing wrong with looking at the negatives in the world, because I believe it's valuable and it's something that we need to do. But whatever you fill your mind with primarily is what comes out of you. I promise. That is true, and there's so many sources for that. That's just a fact. We've heard it said in many different ways. You are the sum of your 5 closest friends. Very true, right? And it is just really important that we understand that point, that it is okay to listen to other people. It is okay to consume information. It is okay to consume media, but it is not okay to immediately take what you've consumed and spit it back out. To continue that thought, the next point I want to make is to question everything you see and hear, particularly because we are now in the age of AI. I imagine you, like me, if you are in your late 20s, early 30s, are so sick and freaking tired of hearing about AI. But unfortunately, we are the old generation now in that context. The ones that we made fun of as kids for not liking the internet, we're now the generation that didn't like the internet in the metaphor. AI is just unfortunately part of the future, and we are too far gone at this point to go backwards on it. It's not that we need to accept every aspect of it. I do believe there's still pieces of this that we need to resist, but I do also think that it is just a technology that is going to very much shape our culture going forward, for better or worse. And I think that AI specifically, we really need to understand how important it is to question everything we see on the internet at this point. Growing up, again, I'm 29, so roughly 10 years ago while I was in high school, there was a very common phrase that we all teased about. You can't believe everything you see and hear on the internet. And I think, largely speaking, and maybe I just was ignorant, but I don't think that I was, I believe that the vast majority of the people I went to school with at the time did throw everything out that they saw on the internet until it was held up by facts. Now, there were obviously people who still blindly believed everything and regurgitated everything they saw without questioning it. But even more so now is the importance of questioning absolutely everything you see on the internet, because AI is getting more and more convincingly real every day. And it's terrifying, if I'm being honest with you. And I really want to encourage you, even if something looks legitimate, even if something seems like it's legitimate, even if all of these things are true, you need to look into it yourself and question it. Find the facts, find the truth about whatever it is, and hold on to that. so that no matter what is thrown your way, AI or not, you have truth to stand on. I mean, growing up, the worst thing that we had was a photoshopped screenshot of a conversation on Twitter. That was what you had. That was your worst case scenario for the most part. Everything else was pretty easy to see when it was poorly edited in a video format to try and piece together something that someone didn't actually say. Now you can generate pretty much anybody, including me, saying something that I didn't actually say. And it's really, really horrifying to me. Maybe I'm old. Well, I'm definitely old. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 20 through 21 really support this point well. Do not utterly reject prophecies, but examine everything. Hold firmly to that which is good. Abstain from every form of evil. I'm going to leave it that point with that. We're going to move on to the final point. And this is the one that, while I believe all three of the points I'm making in this video are valid, important, and the most important things that it seems like too few people are talking about these days after this horrible assassination of Charlie Kirk. This is something that we really need to do better. And this is all sides. This is not a political thing. This is every single side of every single argument needs to hear this. Be willing to tolerate other belief systems that differ from your own. Full stop. Rewind the clock 60 years ago. My grandma shared with me a horrible, tragic event that happened in that time. And I wasn't sure that I was going to talk about this, but I really feel that it's okay to talk about. And if you get upset about it, I hope that you understand that there's a reason I brought this up. I was talking to my grandmother, who's in her 80s, and she shared that 60 years ago, when the awful assassination of J.F. Kennedy, right? John F. Kennedy, when he was assassinated, she said that the nation mourned for 4 days. Nothing moved for 4 days. Nothing happened for 4 days. Now, even she was not comparing Charlie Kirk to a then sitting president. Those two people are very different. However, the baseline for the assassination then is the same baseline for the assassination now of Charlie Kirk. It was over a disagreement. But then the response, is the part I really want to hone in on, was very different. The entire nation, sans a very small group of people from both sides that were on the extreme ends, with the exception of those, everything stopped. No one was celebrating it. No one was trying to use it as a way to weaponize the other side of the aisle. Or ostracize, I probably should say for a better term, the other side of the aisle. They simply saw it for what it was. A horrible, horrible event that no one should be okay with. Fast forward to this horrible tragedy with Charlie Kirk. And we have people that were celebrating it, which I will speak very boldly, is wrong. That is objectively wrong. And I want you to think about this. If you are one of the people who thought it was okay that people celebrated, or at least we were open to the idea that it was okay, really think about the idea that if you were killed for your opinions, your belief systems, would you want people to cheer for it? And I imagine some of you are running to the comments right now to say, well, yeah, if I was X, Y, and Z thing that you thought Charlie was, or you saw him as. That's not the point. And I don't want you to situate yourself in that. I really want you to remove your biases for a moment. Engage the thing between your ears. And no, I'm not talking about if you're like me, a receding hairline. Your brain, use it. I firmly believe that people are intelligent. They've just stopped using their brains. That's really what it boils down to, whether willingly or not. Use your brain for a second. Really think about it. Think about the people that you look up to the most. Maybe Charlie Kirk isn't that person or wasn't that person. Maybe it's someone else. That person in your mind gets killed for their opinions. Are you celebrating it? Are you cheering for it? No. Nor should you be. The point is, it shouldn't matter what their opinion is, but for some reason, it does to a set of people, for whatever their reasons. The other side, by the way, of this same thing, notice I'm not identifying any of these. If you're identifying it, you need to understand I'm not the one telling you that. You're realizing it yourself. The other side of this argument used this as a way to ostracize the people that were cheering. This very small niche set of people within a larger group of people got very loud, got very vocal, and I will admit that small group is getting larger, and it is not okay. But here's the thing. On the flip side of the coin, on the other side of the aisle, that small group of extremists is also growing, and I also condemn that. That is not okay. We need to quit being so extreme with each other. We need to be open to the idea that somewhere in the middle is probably where true peace and existing in peace exists. And not so long ago, I really believe, historically speaking, we were there. As a nation, here in the States specifically, to be very clear what I'm saying. Tolerance has become a bad word to both sides. The moment we cease to respect and tolerate different people's opinions and beliefs is the moment this country will devolve into chaos. And unfortunately, I think we're already there. We have been for quite some time. But on the flip side of that, fortunately, I don't think it's too late. I think what it's going to require is every single side of every single argument to lay aside our biases and seek to find a way to exist together in harmony despite our differences. We can be in peace without agreeing with each other. But we have to choose to. It is a conscious choice. It is a moment-by-moment choice. And I really want to encourage you to make that choice. Please. Maybe to some of you, I'm just some loser Overwatch creator, and that's fine. But if one person's mind is shifted from me making this, it was worth it. And if we all had the mentality that if I shifted one person's mind towards peace, it's a victory, I truly believe we would change the world. I don't need to be known. That's not my point. I don't want to be famous for this. I just hope to have made a difference. Because I truly do care about society. I truly do care about people. Because as a Christian, I believe every single person on this planet was created by the creator of the known and unknown universe. And because of that, we all individually have purpose and value. Whether you follow Christ or not, that is true to me. And it always will be. I'm going to share the scripture that goes with this. It's a little bit longer, and I hope you will stick with me on this. This is Matthew chapter 22, verses 34 through 39. But when the Pharisees heard that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, as a group of the term we use in Christianity is legalistic groups. If you want to look into them, I would encourage you to do some research. There's a lot you can learn just by Googling who were the Sadducees. They gathered together. And one of them, a lawyer, asked him, Jesus, a question, testing him, Jesus, "Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law?" And Jesus said in response, "You shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and foremost commandment." This is the part that it really does bear relevance to what I've been talking about, intolerance. The second is like it. You have to understand, Jesus is saying that this next thing he's about to say is like the greatest and foremost commandment according to his own words. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. I understand if you're like me and you hear phrases repeatedly, maybe you start to chalk them up to cliches and not something that anybody actually believes. They just say it. We really do need to get to a place where we love our neighbors as ourselves, even if we don't want to say it that way because maybe we aren't Christian and we know that's an outright Christian phraseology. Use whatever phraseology you feel you need to use. But if the core principle is the same, I don't care. We need to encourage each other to get back to a place of truly loving the person that's in front of us as ourselves. When we make a mistake, we don't want people to lambaste us for it. I hope that when you make a mistake, that it stays private. Because part of being a content creator is all of my mistakes become public. But I will say, on the flip side of that for me as a creator, as a side note, it's forced me to take accountability and responsibility for when I screw up. Like I did at the very beginning of this very video where I realized I screwed up on Wednesday, guys. I allowed my emotions to overtake my thoughts and words. And all of us have emotional responses that are much more extreme than how we actually believe. So it's the idea of intrusive thoughts. We've teased about that. Oh man, you pushed that egg off the counter. The intrusive thoughts must have taken over. Yeah, we all have those thoughts. But most of society has a way to control themselves and not push the metaphorical egg off the counter. You don't let the intrusive thoughts win. Wednesday night I did. And like I owned at the beginning, I screwed that up. That's on me. It's no one else's fault. It's completely my fault. But that doesn't mean that one time of me screwing up defines how I actually think. It just means that I made a mistake. Many of you may have said or thought something, especially with this current situation, that wasn't okay initially. Maybe you were one of those that initially went, yay, started celebrating this. And then you realized, like you should, oh, wow, I don't know what came over me. That's horrible. Why would I think like that? A man died. And many of you probably had the initial thoughts of the other side of the aisle that is celebrating this. Maybe you initially had thoughts of we need to whatever to that particular group of people. There were a lot of horrible things I saw on the internet. I really don't want to repeat them because I don't condone them. I condemn them. They're horrible. But maybe you initially had those thoughts because you were angry. Own your mistake. If you did it publicly, own it publicly. If you did it privately, own it privately. Taking responsibility for our mistakes is a big deal. Thank you for watching this. I know this is a fairly long video. There was no editing to this because I wanted this to be as authentic as I could make it. Because like I said, I messed up on Wednesday, but I do still believe that Charlie's assassination has an opportunity to be a point at which we shift our perspectives, shift the way we talk to each other, shift the way we think about each other and our differences, and the legacy that he was truly trying to live of having conversations with people he disagreed with. Again, man's not without mistakes. I'm sure that he's made many. But at his core, no one can argue the objective reality that he sat and spoke with people he disagreed with.